At the time of making this video, there are 388 anti-LGBTQ bills being pushed in the USA. I'm here to prove with historical and recent examples as to why LGB without the T is the first step towards abolishing the rights of the LGBTQ at large. Given this video is about broader implications, I will start with a quick historical recap. The USA used to have many laws that were recontextualized or created to suppress the LGBTQ. Sodomy laws criminalized same-sex relationships, masquerade laws required individuals to wear clothing that was deemed suitable for their assigned gender at birth, disorderly conduct laws disallowed same-sex dancing, public displays of affection, or simply being in LGBTQ+ spaces. At the time, these laws led to LGBTQ members, being them gay, lesbian, trans, etc., getting kicked out of places like public cafes and bars. Ultimately, the LGBTQ was forced to either find places that would allow them to be present or to stay inside. And yes, unfortunately, the places that did allow them to be present were met with routine visits from the police. At said bars, whether or not you were trans, police could arrest you for wearing clothing that they deemed inappropriate for your gender. So, primarily, trans individuals were the first to be harassed under this law. But that didn't mean that under this law, only trans people were the ones that were harassed. As an example, if you decided to dress a little less feminine one day as a lesbian, you could be met with the same abuse. This abuse could include incarceration, public humiliation, and even sometimes being admitted to psychiatric facilities. This effectively acted as a countrywide dress code in such a way that trans people were the ones targeted as the villain, but anyone remotely dressed in a non-binary way could be persecuted. All of this is what led up to the Stonewall riots. And if you've been following up until this point, I'm sure you too are at least skeptical as to why the TQ+ was removed from the Stonewall Memorial website. It's not about historical accuracy, it's about division and sending a message, which will be abundantly clear shortly in this video. And for those that don't know, the Stonewall riots are what led to LGBTQ rights being what they are today. In 1940s Germany, trans people were targeted first with the burning of the Institute for Sexual Research. Thereafter, that exact persecution spread to all LGBTQ+ members with violent and tragic consequences. And the point I'm making is not about the consequences, it's about the precedent starting small and then expanding outward. The term unprecedented is a term you've heard many times at this point, and what it means is never done or known before. In other words, something that is unprecedented may seem outlandish to speak about if never experienced, which is exactly the issue of establishing a precedent of hate towards the most vulnerable minority. It becomes much easier to spread. That also means what's tolerated against these groups becomes also more severe. It's also incredibly important to note that in Germany, this all started under the guise of protecting children as well. And Germany is far from the only place to have done this exact playbook. The entirety of the LGBTQIA+ was deemed as inappropriate and dangerous for children here in the USA between 1950 to 1960. Only recently, the Don't Say Gay Act targeted trans individuals, first saying gender diversity should not be taught in schools. However, that quickly escalated into all LGBTQ books being removed. Then, once the precedent that LGBTQ books couldn't be allowed in schools, they removed them from the libraries. The pattern was to start small, set a precedent, and then expand. Oh, did I say was? I meant is. It's very much happening right now. Even though this was all under the guise of protecting the children, it was the children who suffered the most. This resulted in a higher frequency of bullying towards all LGBTQ kids. It also exasperates the feeling of isolation given that LGBTQ+ kids no longer have anything that represents them in the school. And it's widely known yet ignored that being LGBTQ+ is not a choice, so getting rid of all the representation that was there for them is absurd. Another severe and recent example of this divide and conquer strategy is religious exemption laws. One such law allows doctors to deny trans individuals treatment. And although that was pitched as specifically an anti-trans law, there's also clauses in there that allow doctors to deny same-sex couples. Because now, whether or not you're LGBTQIA or plus, you can be denied service places because of religious exemption laws. To those listening closely, you may realize a pattern by this point. Step 1, segregate the most vulnerable group of people, and in any given scenario, the easiest group to target is the one most easily othered from societal norms. Step 2, spin a narrative that something about them is dangerous for children. Step 3, establish this danger as a precedent, burning down any research along the way. Step 4, expand that precedent to everybody else within the community. Once the mass population accepts that trans individuals are somehow indoctrinating children by just existing, the same logic can apply to gay and lesbian people. And I wish that was a stretch, but there's already examples, so many examples in history as well as recently. A perfect example of broader implications, as well as a modern one, is Russia. The gay propaganda laws targeted LGBTQ+ under the guise of, again, protecting kids. Again, trans individuals were among the first targets, but the law expanded to all LGBTQ+ media, including books, films, and social media accounts. This also led to banning gatherings and organizations, not unlike anti-drag laws would eventually do here. And of course, not unlike the West, this led to more violence and persecution towards the LGBTQ as a whole. All of this is nuanced, and those that can read in between lines as well as look at a broader picture will see this. History as well as recent examples show that targeting the trans community acts as a test run to push a larger anti-LGBTQ+ movement. But when it comes to these movements, it's not about the T in the LGBTQ, it's about whatever is easiest for them to hit first. Because you can most rest assured that if it wasn't the T, it would be the L, G, or B first, and then it would come for the rest. And that is just the uncomfortable truth. Attacking trans rights, or in any scenario, the easiest link, is like lighting a match in a dry forest. But once the fire spreads, there may be no stopping it. It's a vicious snowball effect that has worked time and time again. So if those that align themselves with LGB without the T continue to do what they feel is easy, they will set themselves up for a very hard life. If you want to help me spread this message, then please help me satiate the algorithm gods by liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all that stuff. And to help my content further, if you want to, this video is sponsored by G-Subs. Use code genderfluid on checkout. That helps directly. Alright, I'm off to go make my meme video because, yeah, I was in the middle of that and then this happened. Yeah. Okay, bye.